you've reached a huge milestone getting to task 12. And task 12 is a really exciting task to do. In fact, so exciting that I've coloured the box gold on the sheet, because it's the first time that it draws together lots and lots of musical theory and knowledge on the project so far to create something that you can really genuinely be very proud of, that's your own great music. Okay, let's have a look at what we need to do for task 12. It says, starting on iPad Garageband or other DAW, compose a 4-bar rhythm featuring two 2-bar phrases structured as a question followed by an answer, as in task 4. Choose a major key with up to 4 sharps and 4 flats and develop your rhythm into a 4-bar melody by moving the pitches of the notes up or down into a smooth shape in each phrase. Use your knowledge of cadences to make the music sound unfinished at the end of bar 2 and finished at the end of bar 4. Once you've finished editing your melody, upload a screen recording of the piano roll chart. Neatly draw the musical notation for your 4-bar melody with a pencil on paper. Remember to include the time signature, key signature and tempo markings, and upload as a clear photograph. So even just reading the description is spectacular, because there's so much musical knowledge and musical understanding that you will have to understand to be even able to attempt this task. So well done if you've got this far. You're doing a really, really great job. Okay, let's get into the task. So to begin with, I'm actually going to go into the manuscript paper within Shobi. And the manuscript paper often composers have drawn on manuscript paper for years, and it's just got a pre-printed 5-line stave that we can draw our treble clef on, and then we can draw our notes on and what have you. Now it clearly says in the task that we must do this on Garageband first, but there's still some decisions to make, so I'm going to make these first and add them to my manuscript paper. I'd like you to do the same. Okay. So onto the manuscript paper then. My first decision, to choose a key with up to 4 sharps and 4 flats, I'm going to choose to write in G major. So I'm going to put it at the top. I'll just note that it's the key. Okay, that's the first decision. I'm going to write with a 4/4 time signature, or meter. I'm going to choose a tempo. And I'm going to make my tempo not too fast because I want to include some semi-quaver movement within my rhythm. That's just a choice I've made, it's just a creative choice. So I'm going to go for 83 crotchet beats per minute. And what else do I need to think about? Well, eventually when I draw my melody out, it will be a treble clef. You might have to practice doing that a few times. I need to put the key signature in, so I might zoom in on this to make sure that when I draw this, that top line, that's the F line, goes right through the middle of the sharp sign, and that's how you draw that. And so G major, I've got 1 sharp in the key signature. Then I'm going to draw the time signature, which is going to be 4/4, and I can draw my tempo as well. The tempo usually goes at the start of the music there. Crotchet equals 83. There we go, I'm just about ready to get started. So my next job, I'm going to go into Garageband. When you go into Garageband, you're going to create a new project, and I would recommend that you find keyboard as it's on the screen there and tap smart piano. Now, at this point we're not going to play chords, so the smart piano that appears on the screen, we want to turn that into a normal keyed piano. So at the right hand end of the screen, press the red button and it turns into the keys. Okay. Now I'm going to set my session up to match those decisions that I've already made. So first of all, it's a 4-bar rhythm, not an 8-bar rhythm. So in the top right hand corner of the screen, I'm going to tap on the cross, and instead of that being 8 bars long, I'm going to make it 4 bars long. Then I'll tap in the black in the middle of the screen, and we'll then go to the cog. And the cog brings up the settings, and I can change the tempo that's default to 110. I'm going to change that to 83 beats a minute. Okay, again, just tap off the side. And I'm just going to listen to that pulse straight away. So just make sure that your metronome's switched on. That's the blue button to the right of the record button. That's absolutely fine. Already, when you set about composing something in this process, you need to be thinking about rhythm. So, and I listen to that pulse again when I press play again. I'm then going to be thinking of a rhythm. What rhythm can I possibly play at that tempo? Okay, so I've thought of a musical question. This is going to be the rhythm for my first 2 bars. This is going to be the rhythm. Okay, so now what I need to do is press stop and press rewind to the start, and I'm going to record that rhythm in. Now eventually this will become a melody, and task 12 is all about melody. This is this new thing that we're approaching now, and if I think about too many things at once, it's going to become stressful until we can control these well. So let's just record that rhythm in. Everything that we've done so far, we've had experience of this, so we can listen to the click, we can play in time, and then we can edit our rhythm. So let's have a go. Press record. Press the square to stop. Notice that's only filled half my screen up because I'm just writing the first 2 bars of my melody at the moment. Okay, well I was quite happy with that, but I'll listen to it back to see what I think of it. I like the rhythm, but it's out of time with the session, so I then need to go and quantize it. So tap on the mix button at the top, go to track settings, quantization, and because the shortest note value is a semiquaver, it's a 16th of a bar of 4/4, so I need to click on straight and then 1/16. Let's listen to it again, check it's fixed it. Good. Now I'm thinking about the answer. So just like we did in task 4, I'm going to listen back to that rhythm I've just made, and I'm going to think about what goes next. Okay, so I automatically went to clap straight after I heard it, so that it was in time and I could kind of imagine how it followed immediately on. So I'm now going to record that idea that I've got in, and just in the same way that I did for task 4, I chose a feature that I could hear, so a bit of a rhythm, to include in the answer, almost to make the answer make more sense and make a connection to the question. And then I did something else to create a little bit of variation, so it wasn't just repeated. Okay, now to add this second 2-bar rhythm, and to make sure that I definitely don't record over or risk recording over the first 2 bars, I'm going to tap once on the piano at the start of the track, and I get some options that come up. And the options are delete, duplicate, rename, merge, automation, show in grid, and icons. I'm going to go for duplicate. So I've got exactly the same instrument in the track underneath. And whichever of those 2 piano tracks is highlighted, that's going to be the one that I record onto. So I'm going to move my play line at the top there, along to the beginning of bar 3. And then I'm going to press record. And you might think, wow, he's done that perfectly in time, that's incredible. Actually, it also copies the quantization value onto the next track as well. Now I've safely recorded that, you can slide it up into place and it's now done. And in fact, if you want to join them together, you just hold your finger in the black area until the square appears, and then draw around both, tap on it, and go to join. And it'll connect them together as if they were in one take, so that's really helpful. Okay, let's listen to the rhythm all the way through and check we're happy with it. Okay, excellent. I am happy with that. Now, we've got some decisions to make, musical decisions, before we start building it into a melody instead of a rhythm. So the first musical decision I'm going to make is to do with what I learnt about cadences I think it was in task 10. So if we have a look at this to begin with, let's begin by splitting our melody in half, and then let's put our double bar line at the end. So that's going to be the end of that. And I'll do in half again here, and in half again here. Now at this point, according to the question, the task says I've got a sound unfinished there, and I've got a sound finished at the end. To make it sound finished in G major, it means I've got to finish with a note from the G chord. Now we worked out the notes from the G chord, or chord 1 in G major, in task 10. So that's why we did that. So if I just, as a reminder to myself, put a G in a box, to remind myself I need to finish with a note from the G chord, which, just as so we can find it quickly, those 3 notes were G, B and D. To make something sound unfinished, I'm going to end that phrase with a note from chord 5. And chord 5 in G major is the D major chord. The 3 notes in the D major chord are D, F sharp and A. So in other words, I need to make a decision that I'm going to end that phrase with a D, an F sharp or an A. And in theory, according to the music theory, it should make my phrase sound unfinished at that moment. I'll check it later. I'll need to check it when I'm working along. Now, because we're in G major, this doesn't always have to be the case, but I'm going to recommend for this task, and probably for the next few, that you also start, just to establish the key at the beginning, you start with a note from the G major chord. Okay, so we've made those decisions. If you can remember them, that's great, and if not, keep checking back to your manuscript paper about those decisions that you made. Okay, let's go back into Garageband. And this time you can see on my screen that I've got the keyboard at the bottom and the track at the top. It could be because your iPad screen is a bit smaller that you can't see both of those. So to be able to see the green track in the background, just tap on the brick wall button at the top left hand corner of the screen. It disappears, double tap on it, and then you can select Edit, and it goes into this screen. Now, in one of the previous tasks, I asked you to lengthen the notes so that they fill the full length of each note duration. In this case, because maybe there's going to be some room for some expressive qualities, or what we call articulation, I'm going to say that it's the start of the note that is most important in this piano roll editor screen. So the position of them, just as you recorded them in, that's naturally how they were recorded. So let's stick with that rather than extending them all in. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to begin to move that rhythm to create a shape. Now, because my music is in G major, I'm going to take this first note. When you move notes around, hold your finger in the middle of the note and then move it up or down. And I've moved it up to the G there. Now, if you kind of think, well, how on earth does he know that that's a G? What you want to do is look on the piano keyboard, up the side of that screen, and you can see very, very tiny, there is a C3, and then a little further up the screen there's a C4. And they're just plotting out, just like you've seen in task 11, where those C reference points are up and down the piano. So think about it in the same way that you thought about it in task 11. So if I'm on C3, the next note above that is going to be D, because D's the next one along in the alphabet from C. So we've got C, D, E, F, G. So that's how I knew that that note was G. It could be that you have to do that a few times yourself just to get used to this, but eventually you'll work out that, for example, the D is the one in between the 2 black notes, and the B is the one just above the 3 black notes. Okay, so there's different patterns that will help you along the way. Anyway, let's go back to creating this pattern. So I'm going to grab my second note and I'm going to go higher. And not really sure what this is going to sound like yet. I'm just going to put the notes into a shape. Notice I'm trying not to go up, down, up, down, up, down. I'm trying to just make them a longer spread out shape. And then, having just done that first bar, I'm going to listen to it and see what it sounds like. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. Well, let's have a look at the next bit. So listen to that again. Okay. The other thing that I should have said is I'm trying not to repeat notes. So I wouldn't necessarily go with the same note after the previous one. And so I'm going to do this. Let's try that. That's good, but I didn't like the drop, so then it went down to this one that was at the bottom there. Let's have another listen. Da, 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 da. You'll find yourself singing to yourself as you go along. Okay, now before I go very much further, I've got to think about what's happening at the end of this bar, because this is the end of the second bar, so this is the bit that needs to sound unfinished. Remember, I need to, because I'm in G major, I need to be thinking about chord 5, D, F sharp and A, my three options. So for the moment, I'm going to go with an A. Let's listen to it. Oh yeah, I like that. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's absolutely fine. Now, when I made my decision about my rhythm earlier on, I decided that I wanted to have a bit in my answer that was from my question, I actually just clapped the same rhythm for bar 3 as I clapped in bar 1. Now, I pre-thought about that. It could be that you can't think about that as much at the same time, but that can certainly be a decision that you make once you get to this point. So because the rhythm in bar 3 is the same, I'm also going to make the melody notes the same, so that there's that kind of memorable element to it. So then that note's up the top. Whoops, now you see there I accidentally made it too short, so just be careful of that. Okay, let's listen, check the match. They do, okay, so I'm happy with that. So then I'm looking at this final bar, and just as I did with the end of bar 2, I'm now looking at the end of bar 4, and the end of bar 4 is this note here, and I know that that needs to be a note from the G chord, and I'm going to go for G, because I think it has kind of the strongest sound of finishing in G major if I finish the melody on a G. Okay, so let's put these onto some other notes above there. Just going to zoom out a little bit. Now, if we were using Sibelius or something like that, this is a little bit easier to see on Sibelius, because otherwise you're just having to learn what these block positions look like. I mean, maybe it's just harder for me because I've been used to using Sibelius for years. But while we're in lockdown, this'll do nicely. Now, another theoretical decision I've just made there, the note before the G at the end, I've used the 5th. Now, this isn't a cadence per se, because this is melody, and cadences are all about harmony, but harmonies, you'll find, is very, very closely related to melody. So I've made a decision that this note, and in fact this note here, are both from the D chord. And if you think back to what we learnt about perfect cadences in, I think it was task 10, then those two notes being part of chord 5 just before I use chord 1 at the end will make a really nice finished cadence, like a finished sound. Let's listen all the way through to this melody. I think I'm finished, but I need to check it. Okay, really happy with that, really happy with that. if you were doing this as a student, at this point you would create a screen recording of it playing back, and to make your screen recording, go into the edit window, so it's easy for me to see the shapes of the notes, which notes you've chosen, for me to give you some clear feedback on that. Okay, so make your screen recording of it playing through on this page, and then upload it to Shobi. And the last thing we need to do is to write out our musical notation. So here we are, we're back here again, and we need to, I think, do this one bar at a time and really take your time with it so it's neat and perfect, because the whole idea about this is that you've written this original melody. So the idea is that you've written it in a language, on sheet music, on music notation, that you could give to millions and millions of musicians all over the world, and they will be able to play your music if they also understand this language, and many millions of people do. So that's really exciting. Okay, let's look at bar 1. We started on the G above C3. Now C3 is here, it's middle C. We know that from task 11. So, whoops. So let's just very carefully just rub that out. And let's write in the G above middle C as a crotchet. So you put the dot down first, and then the stem. And then the next note is a B, and the stem. Now the next two notes, because they're above that middle B line, watch what we do. We're going to draw the D and the C dots, and then the stem comes down from the bottom left hand corner, and we beam them together like that. So the stems come downwards rather than upwards, because those dots are above the middle line. Okay, the last note in that bar is a B. It's a crotchet. So there we go. So I've drawn out bar 1. Okay, so we need to draw bar 2. Now this time we're going to have to be a little bit more careful because there's more notes to fit in. Draw the dots first. So we've got A, G, A. Now because they're below the middle line, I can draw my stems up like this. Whatever you do, don't forget to add that second beam to the semiquavers. And there's my two stems coming down for those two. Then I've got B, G. Now because one of those notes is below the line, below the middle line, I'm going to put the stems upwards for those two. And then that's my A, that's part of the D major chord. Okay, let's move on to bar 3. So this could be just a copy from bar 1 because it's exactly the same. So we've got G, B, D, C, B, and then we've got lots of notes to fit in this last bar, so again just be careful. A, G, F sharp. Now we don't need to draw the sharp sign in there because we've got the sharp in the key signature at the beginning of the music. So basically if you were reading this, every F you would play as an F sharp unless it tells you otherwise. So we don't need to draw anything extra in there. So we've got A, G, F sharp, G. Let's put them into a nice neat group. Remember that second line for the semiquavers. And then we've got A, D. I'll put them as stem down. And then this end note here is 2 beats long, so it's an open circle and a stem to finish off with there. Okay, and that is the correctly written melody of what you had in Garageband. So then take a screenshot of that. Actually it'd be really helpful at the top if we write task 12, and then we can remember what that is. Take a screenshot of that and upload it to Shobi.